The rear naked choke, the sleeper hold, the mata-leon, hadakajime in Japanese, or in law enforcement, the lateral vascular neck restraint. Neck restraints are not new to jiu-jitsu. Neck restraints were documented in the Beni Bassan caves 4,000 years ago in Egypt. Forensically, a properly applied rear naked choke is in fact not a choke at all. Technically, a choke is defined as asphyxiation, interrupting the ability to breathe or to prevent oxygen from entering the lungs, typically by forcefully compressing the larynx of the trachea. This is usually accomplished by a forearm across the windpipe, as in a traditional judo hadakajime. These chokes can cause immediate crushing of the trachea and can be immediately lethal. We're going to focus on carotid restraints in this discussion. Due to the common martial arts parlance, I'll refer to the rear naked choke as a choke, even though technically it's not a choke. A properly applied rear naked choke places the crook of the elbow over the trachea, and compression comes to each side of the neck, the bicep on one side and the forearm on the other. This compression interrupts the carotid blood flow to the brain, but it does not compromise the respiratory organs. Compression of the carotid arteries typically induces unconsciousness in 6 to 10 seconds. Based on what we see in a typical training session on the mats, a carotid restraint seems more humane in a real fight than even snapping someone's elbow or knocking a tooth out with a hard punch. In the controlled environment of training among friends, or even in a grappling competition, injuries from the rear naked choke are very rare. A competitor generally surrenders with a series of taps, or a coach or a referee will intervene to stop the attack when unconsciousness is imminent. Even when unconsciousness occurs, timely removal of the compression allows blood flow to resume, and the recipient of the neck attack typically regains consciousness in seconds. The dynamics of a street confrontation are very different than a sportive grappling game, both physically and psychologically, for both parties. When a person is in a high-stress confrontation, the rational part of our brain that thinks about options, weighing benefits and consequences, the prefrontal cortex, is typically not in control of our behavior. When we are scared or angry, the walnut-sized amygdala steps in to control our reactions. This is called an amygdala hijack. When we are under the control of the amygdala, the brain focuses on quick, survival-driven reactions. In moments of amygdala hijack, there is very little thought and a high degree of emotion. Both the person being choked and the person using the choke will likely be experiencing an amygdala hijack during a fight. The familiar dynamic of a training partner recognizing the peril of their neck being wrapped and then the inevitable tap is not going to happen in a real fight. There will be no instructor, no referee stepping in to stop the choke. The person perceiving the threat to their life is going to thrash, kick, and do anything else to survive. The person applying the choke is likely also scared or angry in their own right. This natural chaos creates a very different dynamic than what we experience playing the grappling game on the mat. Most documented neck restraints that occur in the street are in the context of law enforcement. We know that at least 134 people in the U.S. have died in police custody as a result of some type of unintended asphyxia or strangulation just in the past 10 years. Many of these cases has been the result of a rear naked choke. Major police departments began banning chokes and neck restraints as far back as the 1980s. The FBI published a study in 1983 that acknowledges the danger of chokeholds in law enforcement, including an acknowledgement that even a properly applied carotid compression may cause unexpected death. After a series of police custody deaths involving neck attacks captured on video, most major U.S. agencies and many states, including Colorado, California, and even Texas, banned police carotid restraints by 2021. We also know situations where people were killed with a rear naked choke outside of law enforcement. John Hernandez was killed in Sheldon, Texas in 2017. Jordan Neely killed in New York in 2023. and Stephen Arsenault was killed by his 14-year-old cousin while just playing in the yard with a rear naked choke in 2012. Is the rear naked choke use of a deadly weapon? Forensically, yes. Many states and the Model Penal Code define a deadly weapon as any object that is capable of causing death or serious bodily injury in the manner it is used. It is a fact that every human being will certainly die if carotid blood flow is interrupted long enough. So any carotid restraint is a manner of use of using that choking limb that is capable of causing death. Colorado and Texas courts have long held that parts of the human body, like the hands or the feet, can be deadly weapons if they are used merely in a manner capable of causing death, even if death or serious bodily injury is not actually inflicted. This is an important consideration in self-defense. Use of force in self-defense is only justified when the degree of force being used is necessary. A simple argument about a parking spot or an altercation with someone less physically imposing than the defender could lead to questions about the necessity of using a choke to end a fight. Consider the Good Samaritan who rounds the corner and sees you choking someone out. Might they feel justified in using deadly force to try to stop you? A common mistake that seems to run across these incidents involving the rear naked choke and people dying inadvertently is people using the choke as a control position. In videos we see where victims have lost their lives to someone's choke, the result of death seems inadvertent. It looks like the person causing the death was motivated to merely control the person, but they were using a chokehold to try to do that, a deadly force attack. The seatbelt grip is a reasonable alternative to a choke when someone has their opponent's back. If control is really their objective, mount, side mount, stage 1 closed guard. These are effective control positions. There are even other submissions, the threat of which can be used to control an aggressor without introducing the threat of death. Control positions allow for de-escalatory communications that can end a confrontation. There is no rational de-escalation with a person being choked. Interrupting the blood flow to someone's brain is an attack, and it is an attack with a deadly weapon that we need to be prepared to justify if we use it in a street confrontation. It is also worthy to consider non-deadly consequences that could occur from choking. It is likely that somewhere between unconsciousness and death, there are serious injuries, brain damage, stroke, or other serious long-term damage that could occur. Another danger of using neck attacks is damaging the neck itself. Recall that both you and the other combatant are going to be experiencing amygdala takeover to some degree during the fight. In the fury of trying to wrap the neck, trying to finish the choke with strength, or the other person going crazy trying to just survive, some very, very violent and erratic movements could occur. One or more of the 7 vertebrae in the cervical spine could become compromised, especially if the chin were to become wedged into the elbow. This could also result in unintended and disproportionate injury for the situation at hand. Carotid restraints are an effective tool to give us the potential to end a confrontation more humanely than strikes or even breaking limbs. They're also an amazing equalizer when there's a distinct size disadvantage. Instructors do need, however, to make sure neck attacks are taught in the proper context with due consideration for the potential for deadly effect when used under high-stress circumstances in a real street self-defense situation. A key takeaway being that wrapping someone's neck is in no way an appropriate hold to try to control another person for an extended period. Chokes are attacks, and they are deadly in a matter of seconds.